대학에서 문화비평을 공부하고 대학에서 학생들에게 문화연구와 문화비평을 가르치고 있고요. 그냥 학생과 선생으로 만났다가 점점 이제 약간 동지적 관계처럼 이제 바뀌었고요. 대중문화를 가지고서 어려운 철학적 개념을 이제 잘 설명해주는 플러스 해가지고 유튜버 철학자로서 또 굉장히 많이 알려지는, 그래서 최근에 어떤 독자나 시청자들에게도 굉장히 호소력을 갖는 그런 철학자라고 볼 수 있어요. 특히 한국에 굉장히 많은 독자를 거느리고 있죠. 아마 지젝 선생을 능가할 만한 그런 철학자들은 살아있는 사람들 중에서는 굉장히 찾기 힘들 것 같고, 이분이 아마 포스트 코로나에 대해서 이야기를 한다면 상당히 이제 실질적인 이야기를 해주지 않을까 이런 생각이 들었어요. How has your life treated you, so far? I heard that you also under the lockdown.
For the time being, it's okay. I had some moments of panic, but it's okay.
You are in the Slovenia, yeah, Slovenia. So, what do you
Yes.
actually found out? What did you find out? Other people's life there. I think Korean audience will be interested in that.
Maybe. I think, what is a little bit shocking. I was used to spend most of the time alone or only with my wife in my apartment.
Yeah.
So many things changed for me. But nonetheless, the shock was immense for me.
Yeah. Is Yella okay? Yeah, your wife? Is Yella okay?
Yeah. She is even stronger than me, I think. She found a way to put herself into work. You do classes at the university through Zoom. She began to write a detective story, a new novel, and so on. While I am, how I can measure my depression, my warmest, nicest moment is in the evening when I know that I will go to sleep, that I will disappear from this world.
Yeah.
And the most traumatic moment is the morning. Up to a certain point, it was possible to live in this dream. It's a nightmare. It may last 1 or 2 months, and then it will disappear. The hope was summer will already be a good old summer. You go to the beaches and so on.
Yeah.
Now it's clear that even if the situation gets better, the virus will stay. How can you make plans? How can you organize your life when you don't know what is awaiting you? Some leftist wrote on a wall, another end of the world is possible. Usually the leftists say another world is possible. Our world, certain mode we act in reality, has ended. But we should not buy what those in power are trying to sell us. Not so much in Korea. Korea is a model, but we have what Trump is selling us, Donald Trump. It's basically, even if thousands die, economy should return. We have the Chinese model, total digitalized state control, and so on and so on. We have now maybe the darkest model, where the privileged half, maybe even less probably, will live in a totally isolated spaces. Food will be delivered through drones. You will see doctor through digital space and so on and so on. But somebody must do the real work, pack the food and so on. They will remain outside. It's a horrible world. So again, the formula should be don't buy this end of the world. We want a different end of the world.
Many people are actually quite interested after this one, and then why actually the people quite interested in this kind of viral, the pandemic is definitely what kind of actually effect will be possible after this kind of the pandemic. And then many people actually anticipate that the crisis of a post-war world system and the world order. So what do you expect after this kind of COVID-19 situation?
I really think, as I put it in one of my texts, comparing our situation with that of a very famous short science fiction story by Robert Sheckley, The Store of the Worlds. We are not now just in a medical emergency where we should simply obey orders and hope for the best. Now it's a political moment. Many of us still think this is some kind of a bad joke, a nightmare. One morning we will awaken, life will be back at normal. No, we have to accept it. This is our reality. And even if this crisis, let's hope, will gradually disappear. I agree here with another European philosopher, Bruno Latour, who said that the coronavirus crisis is just a dress rehearsal of the future global warming economic crisis. I read that, we were all glad, at least one good result of the lockdown. You remember those satellite images, how nice the sky now is above China, or how in India now, in New Delhi, for the first time in 30 years, you can see Himalayas.
Yeah.
Meteorologists are already warning this clear sky can mean much higher temperatures and much stronger monsoons.
Right.
So other catastrophes, that is the problem. Our world is so complex. It's wrong idea to think we lived in a normal world, then out of nowhere, COVID came. No, just beneath the surface. All the time, similar things, flu, COVID, are warming up there.
Right.
And we have to learn to live with this, to control it. Mm-hmm. That's why it may appear to some people tasteless, but you remember in one of my texts, I used the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross idea of 5 steps to accept a catastrophe. No? First is denial, that was Trump. It will disappear, it's nothing. Then it's negotiation, oh, it's not so bad, let's try to. Then it's aggressivity, blame the foreigners. Then it's despair. And then comes acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean, okay, we do nothing. But acceptance means, yes, we are entering a new era, and we should learn to live with it and to fight it gradually, to elaborate strategies, and so on and so on. It's a crucial moment. I consider you, although we don't speak often, one of my few true friends. But my God, I don't know if or when I will see you again. One of my serious dreams is to enjoy with you and some of our friends a nice bibimbap.
Yeah. We actually went there in a nice bibimbap restaurant in Jongno. Do you remember?
Yeah. You see, this is so tragic about this experience. It's not so much big things, but how you have to change your daily life. Like my wife, who worries about me, I'm very much a risky group, forces me every day, or she does it, to wipe to wipe the doors with alcohol and so on and so on. You know, this paranoia of touching things.
Yeah, yeah.
It affects so much daily life. I really think there may be collective outbursts of madness, mass breakdowns, and so on. You have to have certain hopes, organize your desire. Now the situation is so confusing, we cannot
Right.
do that. It's extremely important.
철학자로서 이 문제를 가지고서 제가 생각할 때는 가장 이제 사실관계에 입각해서 파악하고 있는 분이 아닌가 싶어요. 이분이 이제 뭐 당뇨에다가 뭐 혈압도 안 좋고 뭐 상당히 심장도 안 좋아요. 그래서 사실 기저질환이 있어가지고 아예 정말 이제 바깥을 나오지를 못하고 몇 달을 지금 집에 갇혀 계시는데, 그러니까 약간 우울증 같은 것도 오셔가지고 굉장히 힘들어하셨어요 처음에. 그러다 보니까 이제 본인이 더 적극적으로 이제 포스트 코로나를 이제 생각이 된 거죠. 그래서 그걸 많은 이야기를 해주셨고, 이런 이야기예요. 쉽게 말하면 과거에 우리가 좋아했던 그 세계는 이제 다시는 오지 않을 거다. This kind of pandemic situation does not show that the omnipotence of the state power, but rather kind of very limit of state power, which allowed, as you said, the people's control over that kind of power. It's to clarify the distinction between state power and the people's, the power. That is so interesting, in my opinion.
That's very important what you say now. Because when people like Agamben and so on claim now state tries to exert total control, it will be very ironic what I will say now. But isn't it that people would like the state to really control the virus?
There's a kind of ideological fantasy there.
We feel that the state itself, up at a certain point, becomes visible that the state is rather impotent, basically, cannot control the situation, and so on. Another world, again, is the Chinese world of totally digitalized control. I think that the true miracle is not China, but it's, at least up till now, South Korea, and especially Hong Kong, and Chinese don't like to hear this, Taiwan. You can see here that you can have lockdowns and all that, but what is important is that there is a mutual trust, at least relative trust, between the population and the government.
Some French, intellectual the liberal intellectual criticized such a transparency, which was actually carried by Korean government, because we actually used that personal data for that kind of, the mass test. It means we actually check out the people's, movement, and then actually contact them to let them actually report their actual symptom to the, medical authority, something like that. This liberal is a little bit panic about this kind of situation, and they call that this kind of system as a totalitarian. But that is, I think, some very vulnerable point of transparency. Transparency means we must actually give all information personal information to the authority. And that is a kind of liberal, belief, faith about, the relationship between power and the individual.
No, by transparency, sorry. By transparency, I meant transparency of how the state controls us. But I don't have this fears. Okay, I can imagine a situation that the state can use this way that they control you through your phone to also for political uses, to learn whom you are meeting and so on and so on. But let me tell you something that my friends from Israel told me. They, those in power, are already doing this serially, already before coronavirus. When in United States, you know that we discovered that National Security Agency has access to all our phone calls, to all our internet communication, and so on and so on. No, they are already doing it. Now, at least they are doing it personally for a good cause. I don't think, again, I think this fear that we will be controlled is a fake. It's a fake fear. It's a right-wing libertarian fear, and they deny basically the seriousness of the situation. I just don't want the authorities to control my mind, what I think and so on. I don't care if they control where I go or whatever, no? And if they can warn me, don't go there, there is an infected person there, I would say, thanks very much.
So actually, Michel Foucault said, the kind of modernization and modernity is a kind of, always related to surveillance.
Don't follow too much Michel Foucault here, and don't dismiss surveillance as just something that works in order to control population and so on and so on. This type of surveillance can well work with civic freedoms.
일단 그 지젝 선생이 바라보는 한국의 성공 비결은 사실 정부의 발빠른 대응이죠. 그런데 그것이 굉장히 잘 효과적으로 작동을 했다는 것이 지젝 선생은 이제 굉장히 중요하게 보는 입장이고요. 일단 방역이라는 것이 우선이었고, 방역과 관련돼서 이제 정보 공개를 이제 했는데, 그게 문제를 일으키니까 또 수정하고 이런 방식으로 갔죠. 그거는 굉장히 바람직한 거예요. 유럽 상황 같은 경우 우리가 보고 있으면 유럽의 가치라는 것이 그런 인권이라는 게 대단히 중요한데, 그렇다고 인권을 포기하자는 뜻이 아니라 이제 그 인권의 개념을 재구성해야 되는 거죠. 이런 상황이 오게 되면. Many people actually pointed out, what happened in China and what happened in Asian countries like South Korea. Some actually liberal, the intellectual in Europe and America is quite worried about, the kind of authoritarian mentality, authoritarian state.
Yeah.
But what really actually happened in China and Korea and the other, Asian countries, definitely such a, people's quite, and, the free and the intervention in this situation. Kind of, the pave the way toward such a, sharing the commons, not really, state. Get involved in that kind of control. It's not a control society.
What we are saying, state needs not some world government, but close collaboration, international coordination. Without this, we are lost, I claim. Because, my God, even intelligent capitalists like Bill Gates know this. You cannot, for a short time, you can do what relatively lucky countries like Australia and New Zealand plan to do. That's very important against right-wing populism, which claims we should isolate into nation states. No, of course we have to have quarantines, control, and so on and so on. That's why I don't agree with otherwise my good friends like Agamben, who worry that this digital control of our lives will bring new totalitarianism and so on. Listen, in Europe and in the United States, it's the populist right who is against lockdown. I am much more afraid at this moment of false libertarians, of those you still find them, even in Europe, who claim this is all an exaggeration, we can mix just with caution, life should go on as normal, and so on and so on. Israel, I was told by friends from there and in some part of the United States, is that after the first month or what of panic, now people simply decided, oh, it's not so serious, let's go out. They go out, cafeterias are full, you are allowed to sit only outside, but from the next week also inside. I think there is something pretty irrational in it.
All right.
Maybe before we were too paranoid, you avoided any contact. Now people are more and more simply mixing, economy should open, and so on and so on.
외국 친구들이 계속 저한테 물어보기를 록다운 됐느냐, 너희들도 격리가 됐느냐 이렇게 물어보는데 우리는 격리가 된 적은 없거든요. 그러니까 격리를 안 하고 이만큼 이제 코로나 바이러스를 통제했다는 게 외국에서 이제 주목하는 부분이죠. 근데 이제 국가로부터 떨어져 국가가 안 보이면 개인은 이제 자유로운 존재가 되는 거죠. 그래서 이제 일반적으로 자유주의나 이런 어떤 정치 사상들은 국가로부터 개인을 떼어놓는 그걸 굉장히 중요하게 봤단 말이에요. 그게 이제 이른바 유럽이나 미국에 있는 그런 이제 자유주의적인 시민에 대한 생각이에요. 그래서 이제 유럽이라는 미국에 우리가 가지고 있는 그런 이상적인 어떤 관점으로서 봤던 그런 국가에 비한다면 훨씬 더 이제 그런 것들이 아시아 국가에 잘 이루어졌다. 지젝 선생은 그런 아시아에서의 코로나 바이러스 성공이라는 것이 어떤 국가의 역할이라는 걸 제고하게 만들어주는 거고, 우리 민주주의는 사실 어떤 측면에서 보면 그런 감시의 이중성과 함께 공존한다고 볼 수가 있죠. 그래서 그걸 어떤 선에서 정하느냐가 그 사회의 정치 체제의 성격이에요. 너무 이제 그런 그 정보가 공개되고 투명성이 확보되어 버리면 사실 그게 전체주의잖아요, 그죠? 그래서 어느 선까지 투명성을 보장할 것인가? You know, after Second World War, we actually had, that kind of Cold War framework, led by the United States. But we actually witnessing at the moment the crisis of even actually somebody already said in end of the United States, the leadership. So and somebody actually also expect, rise of China. Whether Chinese wants or not, actually definitely after this situation, I think China will become up, as a kind of leader.
Maybe I wouldn't be so sure because there is also, it's very interesting, in some African and Latino American countries, I read, a disappointment at China. Our world is so complex that something that can function like an obstacle or causing trouble. No, we have to be prepared for low-cost invasions, for new problems, and so on and so on. And again, only together we can do it. Chinese here at least see this. You know that now they have a big low-cost invasion in Eastern Africa and Arab countries. And Chinese are helping them to contain it because they know that if they don't stop it there, it can come to China. I think that that's the paradox. Although we need lockdowns and so on, international cooperation is more urgent than ever. We need a state now, a strong state, a state ready to collaborate with other states and with local communities, and a state which is basically trusted by people and which trusts people. This is, for me, from what I know, the problem maybe with China. Isn't the Chinese model based on not trusting?
You said that China is not the future of our world.
I hope not. It can be, I think the situation is open. Some people are saying China is our future. We will see. Others think this a new cruel, brutal capitalism. People die and so on, but markets will survive is our future. If these are our only two options, Trump or China, then let's gather in a nice hotel and commit suicide.
Right. Actually, we see that the America, the Trump government tried to build up the new Cold War, front. He seemed actually tried to do that. They're actually taking, the anti-Chinese, sentiment, and then he tried to use that kind of, situation.
Even if Chinese did lie and so on, probably they did, I don't know. But this is the worst thing. Trump is really thinking now in terms of, is so transparent what he is doing. He is afraid that coronavirus crisis will ruin his chances of re-election. So his idea is, let's create an external enemy so that we can blame them. This is the worst thing that can happen. Trump is practically declaring a war, at least a Cold War on China. This is the worst thing that can happen at this moment. I really think that this can lead to unpredictable international chaos and so on.
That was false. And rather than having an argument, I said, I have to call it where it came from. It did come from China. They made a horrible mistake, and they didn't want to admit it. We wanted to go in. They didn't want us there. Even World Health wanted to go in. Should have never happened. Could have been stopped at the source. Could have been stopped in China. It should have been stopped right at the source, and it wasn't.
我们敦促美方摘下意识形态有色眼镜，否则损失更大的将是美方。美国的政客停止向中国甩锅，还是把时间和精力用到控制好本国的疫情上面。
상대적으로 지금 미국이나 유럽에 비해서 중국이 그래도 빨리 이제 경기를 회복하고 있고 또 회복하려 노력 중이고요. 그러니까 코로나를 빨리 이제 해결하고 이제 그런 부분들에 대해서 자기들이 뭔가 조치를 취해서 이제 경제를 재건하려고 하겠죠. 이제 그것이 성공적이라면 중국의 역할들이 당연히 중요하게 부각이 될 수밖에 없는 거예요. 그러니까 지금 미국이 중국을 견제하기 위해서 수없이 많은 어떤 신냉전적인 그런 어떤 수사를 계속 구사하고 있잖아요, 그죠? 근데 그것도 미지수예요. 과연 신냉전이 과연 이루어질 수 있을지도. 왜냐하면 그 과거에 2차 세계대전 이후에 냉전이 가능했던 이유는 일단 막강한 이제 그런 그 소련을 중심으로 한 그런 소비에트 블록이 있었고요. 또 한 가지는 미국의 경제 부흥이 있었던 거죠. 미국의 경제 성장이 있었기 때문에 그것이 뒷받침됐기 때문에 냉전이 가능했던 거예요. 근데 앞으로 국제 질서가 변화할 것이라는 건 확실하다는 거죠. 그리고 거기에서 중국의 역할이 중국이 원하든 아니면 원하지 않든 또는 중국이 아닌 다른 나라가 원하든 원하지 않든 어쨌든 중국의 역할은 부각될 거라는 거예요. 대두할 것이고 이렇게 많은 전문가들이 생각하듯이 중국이 과연 이제 글로벌 리더십을 갖춘 국가가 될 것인가는 물음표죠, 아직까지. Actually, now
Yes.
lots of people talk about new normal. As you already actually discussed a lot, we cannot get back to such a normal, we actually experienced. Could you actually clarify, or give a more idea about what kind of a new normal we will face after this, COVID-19?
I don't know enough because, again, it would involve too many presumptions, hypotheses about how much social contacts we will afford. But I think that even if we will not find a vaccine, at least it will be probably possible to measure in a much faster way. Are you immune? To what extent you are immune? Are you negative, positive? And then, so some kind, I don't worry about this, some kind of social life will re-emerge even in Ljubljana. Capitalism is already reinventing itself as coronavirus capitalism.
That's why actually you should actually think about or imagine, what happened after this kind of COVID-19, cause of this. What kind of value we'll actually search for?
Then there are many poor, desperate people for whom there are worse things than this virus. They are ready to accept the risk.
I don't care if the army will kill me. I prefer to die by coronavirus than to die by angry virus.
Necesitan leche, personas de adulto mayor, discapacitados, muchas personas que necesitamos.
Us people that are at a lower risk, I feel like we should have continued out our lives and continued working.
1 to 3% that I will be infected, maybe even that I die, but at least my family needs food and so on and so on. So it's quite possible that we will return to some very brutal world with stronger class differences between those who can afford protection, relative safety, those who cannot. My friends and enemies, I said we need communism now. No, of course, I'm not crazy. I don't mean North Korea. I don't even mean China or whatever. By communism, I mean simply this. Our economy till now, and it worked pretty well, at least in some parts of the world, was based on global market and profitability. I don't think we can confront the crisis. Maybe you will be able in South Korea, but globally, following the rules of the market. I think that the proof are even those conservative leaders in the West, even Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, in France, in Germany, who are now following de facto another rule. Boris Johnson now temporarily nationalized the British railways and so on. What they are doing with money, giving for free people billions, trillions of dollars. Of course, they manipulate. Much of it goes to companies and so on. But basically, this is no longer the capitalist logic. They know that the function of the state in this situation is that they have to guarantee that, not in a sense of communism of opulence, but in a very modest sense, everybody can satisfy her basic needs. So it's more, as I once put it, wartime communism. It's a matter of survival. Things really matter. It's no longer market logic which should decide. Of course, we still need competition, because without some kind of competition, I'm afraid of corruption then, What we need now is simply public authority, together with collaboration of the people and internationally coordinated, to guarantee certain basic things which are absolute necessity. And we can enumerate them. It's expanded healthcare. It's absolutely clear. We have to be prepared for second wave. It has to be internationally coordinated, because epidemics expand. You cannot be permanently isolated in a bubble. So much more, it's unconditional healthcare. Then the problem is food. Now with this lockdown, who will harvest food? Who will package food and so on and so on? These are already critical moments now in Germany and especially in the United States. Well, the meat packaging factories, whatever you call them, are one of the strongest clusters of infection. So this, then we need water, electricity, garbage, and especially internet, digital links to function.
그러니까 지젝 선생님이 말씀하시는 커뮤니즘은 정치 체제의 커뮤니즘이 아니에요. 예를 들어서 우리가 사용하는 언어라든가 또는 뭐 물이라든가 공기라든가 기후도 여기 들어가는 거고요. 자연, 또 우리가 또 만들어낸 여러 가지 지식들, 자, 이런 것들이 다 공공재잖아요. 그러니까 이걸 누구의 소유라고 말할 수가 없죠, 그죠? 누구의 것이라고 말할 수 없는. 그래서 어떠한 이 집단이든 어떠한 그런 권력이든 사람들을 동원하기 위해서는 이 공통적인 것에 대한 호소를 해야 돼요. 그리고 거기에는 항상 뭐가 나오냐 그러면 협력이라는 이야기들이 나와야 된다는 거죠. 그래야지만 정치라는 게 가능해진다는 거예요. 그런 의미에서 코미디를 말하는 거죠. 그래서 뭐 이건 좌파도 우파도 어쨌든 다 국제주의를 강조했단 말이에요. 예전에는. 그러다가 그래서 이제 유엔도 만들고 WHO도 그래서 만들어진 거 아니겠어요? 근데 이게 이제 점점 이제 약화되어 가는 과정에 있는 거고, 지금 미국 트럼프 대통령이 WHO를 공격하고 하는 이유도 사실 이거 약화를 보여주는 거죠. 국제주의 약화를 보여주는 거고.
Chinese officials ignored their reporting obligations to the World Health Organization and pressured the World Health Organization to mislead the world when the virus was first discovered by Chinese authorities. Because they have failed to make the requested and greatly needed reforms, we will be today terminating our relationship with the World Health Organization and redirecting those funds to other worldwide and deserving urgent global public health needs.
뭐 WHO를 뭐 CHO로 바꿔야 된다 이런 이야기들이 사실은 중국을 겨냥하고 있는 것처럼 보이지만 사실 민족 국가의 이해관계를 국제주의보다 우선하는 것을 위한 사전 포석이라고 볼 수가 있는 거죠. 우리는 이제 우리만 살겠다. 그러니까 자연스럽게 그냥 민족 국가로 이제 회귀해 버리는 거예요. 그런 생각들이. 그래서 부강한 민족 국가로 가버린다는 거죠. 결론적으로 말한다면. 그래서 이제 그런 부분들을 어떻게 이제 해결할 것인가가 저는 이제 중요한 문제라고 보고, 그래서 지젝 선생님도 그런 부분에서 계속 그런 공통적인 것들에 대한 환기가 중요하고 그 공통적인 것을 함께 해결해 나가는 국제주의적인 협력이 중요하다는 거죠. 그게 대한 어떤 논의가 지금 너무 안 보이니까 굉장히 우려하고 있는 거죠. So economists like Piketty, from Piketty.
Yeah.
Suggested a kind of a Green New Deal. We must actually restructure our economic system, based on that kind of eco-friendly, something like that. What do you think about this?
Generally, I agree with him. You know what's always my problem with him? That how will he admits in his new book on capitalism and ideology also, he admits that this can really be done only at a global international level. Mm-hmm. Okay, but if you can do this, then we already won. How will you establish an international authority? He is too utopian, I think, with authority, international, global, with executive power.
근데 어쨌든 그린 뉴딜이라는 건 서스테이너블 디벨롭먼트라는 말로 예전에 썼는데 지속 가능한 발전이죠. 발전을 해야 되는 것이 자본주의 속성이잖아요. 자본주의는 어쨌든 발전을 계속 해야 되는 거죠. 근데 그 발전이라는 건 지금까지는 지구의 자원을 소비해가지고 뭔가 이렇게 인공적인 걸 계속 만들어내는 것이었잖아요. 그죠? 근데 이게 이제 한계에 도달한 거죠. 기후변화가 오고 자원이 고갈되고 기존에 어떤 자본주의적인 어떤 룰을 가지고는 이게 해결되지 않기 때문에 여기에 이제 공공성을 강화한 국가가 개입해서 그런 어떤 민영 기업들이 해결하지 못한 문제를 같이 해결해야 된다라는 거죠. 국가가 주도해 나간다는 뜻이죠. 뉴딜이기 때문에. 예를 들어서 한국 같은 경우도 현대 같은 데다가 이제 정부가 돈을 지급해서 수소차 개발을 시킨다든가 이런 것들, 이제 이런 일들을 유도하게 만들자라는 거예요. 근데 이제 과연 성공할 수 있을지는 이제 뭐에 달려 있느냐. 그거는 제가 볼 때는 그런 불편함을 참고 그런 우리 지구를 지키겠다고 생각하는 그런 분들의 마음이 모여야 되는 거예요. 그런 대안적 삶에 대한 그 불편함을 감수할 수 있어야 돼요.
I think I would prefer to talk about close cooperation of nation states and so on and so on. If you have a world government with too much power, you will have tremendous factional struggles there, and it will be such a distant authority that it will be out of control from local nations and so on and so on. My basic problem is, again, how to come there. If we just try to steer our direction towards more international cooperation, for example, there will be droughts, floods, hurricanes, famines. We have to establish some kind of cooperation that one part of the world helps the other part of the world. I'm not talking about centralized world government. I'm talking about this feeling of general responsibility. If millions are starving in Eastern Africa, we should do something. If there is a new wave of illness, I don't know where it will be, in Brazil, in India, it's a problem for all of us. Don't think just in bubbles and quarantines and so on. There should be quarantines, but we should still help them.
Of course, humanity is a very abstract word, but thing is that that kind of humanity needed, these days. But it's not quite the old sense.
My friend Alenka Zupancic put this very nicely. He says, till now, humanity was an empty word,
Yeah.
But now, through this experience of global crisis, humanity becomes a fact. We feel it. It becomes a reality. It's now in our egotist interest to be solidary with others, because in the long term, their safety is our safety. We cannot be safe here while the virus is killing thousands there. That's the price paid by United States, by United Kingdom, and so on.
That might be a new normal, exactly, yeah? As a new internationalism.
Let's
Based
hope.
on the mutualism.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
There are, as I said in my text, based on that science fiction story, we live in a store of the world. Different worlds are offering themselves to us now. That's why, again, I emphasize it's an eminently political problem. Now it's the time for new visions from politics, because we are literally forced to invent a new way of life, of common life.
Yeah.
And that's the political situation par excellence.
That's actually what is important is that the invention of a new life. Invention, that is political. That's a very crucial point.
Now we will have to decide, because the old world is over, all this will have to be reinvented. It can be done, I think. It can be done, but it's a crucial political moment now. Maybe an epochal moment.
Could you actually advise some Korean people, to face up this kind of COVID-19?
I cannot give you advices because I am learning from you, maybe due to your historical experience in the 20th century, Japanese occupation, Korean War, and then the conflicts you had after all that. You are, in some sense, wiser, that it's easier for you to live with the dangers in the background.
Yeah.
And I hope that psychologically this will make it easier for you. The countries that I always check are Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan, China, okay, I wish them all the best, and Sweden. Will their relative openness succeed or not? So it's my compulsive gesture to check on Worldometer these countries. You are our hope, literally.
So I think we've done. We've done.
Okay, thanks very much.
So actually, I hope we can see in Seoul soon. You know, next year.
No, I would love. I'm dreaming to come there. I would love. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Keep
Thank
in
you.
touch. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you
Bye
very much. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
I will. Bye bye. Bye. How do I go out? Bye-bye. Hello?
Hi.
Hi. What happened? I now I see you and I hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, the producer wanna actually you show your fancy T-shirt more.
Then I will go even further. I should go further then.
The distance. 어쩔 수 없어.
Okay, is this okay?
You like a Stalinist.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.